Please welcome Georgia Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle, House Speaker David Ralston, and Georgia Chamber Government Affairs Council Chair Roy Robinson for our legislative panel.
Well, good morning. This morning I have the distinct pleasure of being here with two of Georgia's great leaders, Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle and Speaker of the House, David Ralston. These gentlemen have been steadfast with the business community, with our expansion of jobs, job creation, and just the overall economic health of our state. Gentlemen, let's start with your questions. We'll start with education. 1/3 of our budget is toward K through 12 to ensure that all students receive a quality education. How do you believe we can better spend our education dollars to achieve this goal? Lieutenant Governor?
Well, obviously education is the biggest issue I think we face. When corporations have been surveyed, 50% of them said we have jobs, but we don't have a qualified workforce to fill those jobs. And it really is a question of a skill set. And for too long, I'm of the opinion that we really have adopted a one-size-fits-all model in education. The issue is really not about funding, because funding is being delivered at the state level and certainly at the local level. It's a question of where you utilize those funds in a way in which gets the outcome that all of us are looking for. And so there has to be a continued paradigm shift in education that is focused directly with the workforce. That's why when I came into office the first year in 2007, we created the College and Career Academy Network, which allows high schools and technical colleges to blend together and teach kids on a technical path of learning, where we're getting 98% graduation rates and 100% placement rates when they're finished. Along with our charter school systems, where now we have 16 systems across Georgia that have converted to this new model, which allows a contractual agreement that has very high accountability measures and enormous flexibility. That's the real answer when it comes to funding, because quite candidly, I don't want to micromanage public education. I want to allow local communities to design an educational system that not only meets the need of their community, but more importantly, meets the need of the individual student. And when we accomplish that, we're able to have real success in education for communities. That's how we address it, and I think that's the real secret to the success going forward.
I think there's two words that are important when we have a discussion about education. One is resources and the other is reform. I think that we always need to be looking at more effective ways of using our resources. I would like to see us have a greater emphasis on the early years in education, and that's one of the reasons I'm excited that the governor is proposing that we restore the remaining 10 days of the pre-K program this year. I think that's going to be very important. I think we need to focus on the early years in elementary, and I think those are ways that we can look at better using our resources. But I agree with the Lieutenant Governor, it's not really just a question of resources. We need to look at ways that we can improve what we're doing in education. Georgia's too great a state to have some of the ratings that we have in education now. I think Georgians have an appetite for reform, and I think they want to settle for nothing less than the best in terms of education. I think we saw that in the discussion on the charter school amendment last year. Yes, so I think we need to look at other innovative ways that we can offer our young people a quality education. We also need, and I would like to see us have a good discussion about educational governance and look at ways that maybe we can govern our educational systems more effectively.
All right. Another issue that takes up a lot of our budget is health care. With the impending, we have the Medicaid shortfall and the impending reauthorization of our hospital financing program, which allows us to draw millions of dollars down from the feds. How do we address that? And then the extended need to provide for our economically disadvantaged. How do we do that without sacrificing, without compromising our current health care delivery system? Mr. Speaker?
Well, obviously one of the challenges that we have this session is addressing the Medicaid need in the budget, and we're going to do that. It's going to require some sacrifice in other areas, but I think we have a responsibility there to address that need. And you know, Georgia is growing. More people are qualifying for Medicaid now, and I think we need to look at the most effective ways that we can utilize those Medicaid dollars to address that growing demand. And I think we also have to look at what is the most fair way of accomplishing that mission, and I think that we're on the path now to doing that. And I think that the measure that the Senate adopted yesterday, and I suspect they'll send over to us in a few days, I think is a very reasonable way of meeting that need.
Well, I agree with the speaker. I think one of the things that oftentimes gets overlooked is a relationship that we have enjoyed, not with the speaker, but also with the governor, working hand in hand, addressing very major sensitive issues to our state. The Senate did take very bold, decisive action yesterday in committee. I want to thank my chairman of Regulated Industries, Senator Jack Murphy, who addressed this issue. But working together on the front end, we've been able to define meaningful solutions. And I want to go back to really what I think is your fundamental question, and also what the speaker said. The budget is built on this financial plan, and it is significant. And it's significant because hospitals will close if you don't have it. And if you go to the types of cuts that would be required, it would be very devastating. One of the things to the business community across the state is that we do have a health care delivery system that communities can be very proud of. And to take it even further, I have been to the Children's Health Care Center. I have been there and witnessed the Aflac Cancer Center, where the little boys and the little girls are undergoing the treatment that's necessary, where they're fighting for their lives. And in my office is a picture of a little boy that doesn't have any hair, that had a bone marrow transplant, has a little Superman outfit on. And I look at that picture every day, and it reminds me, for the real reason, that we're here. Somebody has to stand in the gap and fight for those people. And none of us, Republican or Democrat, need to look at this as what's politically expedient, but what is fundamentally right for the state of Georgia and the citizens that we are here to take care of. I am proud of what CHO is doing, and I'm proud of what our other hospitals are doing, and it's the least that we can do to step in the gap and help them save lives.
Thank you very much. That's good stuff. Transportation. I want to move on transportation and address this question to both of you. Only 3 of our 12 regions passed T-SPLOST referendum.
Right.
Our infrastructure needs are, to say dire, to say paramount is an understatement. Lieutenant Governor, how do we address that?
Well, you know, the first thing is the 3 districts that did pass it. I think they're going to have a very strong competitive advantage economically because for many of those districts, roads do mean jobs, and they're going to position themselves very appropriately. And in the Atlanta region, obviously, we have a congestion problem. And the T-SPLOST did not pass. It's very clear that there wasn't an appetite from the citizens, and we accept that. But the truth of the matter is that we still have to provide the infrastructure that is going to be necessary for a growing state and a prosperous state. And as I have said, really there are two instruments. One is that we have to utilize the resource in a more efficient way, which means we're going to have to take some of those lanes, what I call reversible lanes, where you're able to utilize capacity where it's not needed and shift it to where it is needed. Other states do it, and they do it very, very well. The Department of Transportation is moving down that path. The second thing is we've got to look for additional public-private partnerships as well. The governor has showed great leadership on this, and I'm very supportive in that effort. And then thirdly is we have to prioritize. We have to prioritize the funding source that we do have in order to maximize the greatest degree of need that our state has. That's not easy, but it starts with a good DOT commissioner, which we have, along with the board, and working hand in hand, not only with the governor's office, but with the House and the Senate. And I believe that we're on the right path. Todd Long is doing a wonderful job, as well as the commissioner. And so together with a state strategic plan on transportation, I think we can prioritize those resources in a way that meets the needs.
Well, I agree with the Lieutenant Governor on the points that he made. I think that obviously public-private partnerships are going to be an important part of our transportation future. Prioritizing how we spend is certainly essential. I hope we can keep the discussion going, though, in terms of looking at some ways of financing transportation improvements here in the state. I'm not sure what the answers are. I think it's very clear that the current system is antiquated in terms of how we pay for this infrastructure. And I think that it's important that business leaders and community leaders around the state, along with those of us in the public sector, continue to partner and have a discussion looking for ways that will be acceptable to the public of how we're going to pay for our transportation needs going forward. The reality is that this state's not going to stop growing, and so we have to be prepared for that future.
Lieutenant Governor, one of your big initiatives has always been venture capital. We do a very good job in Georgia of at least growing the businesses of high-paying tech positions. However, we have a challenge in keeping them due to lack of funding. Other states have had a publicly funded venture capital system. How have we learned from other states in which we can, how can we learn from them to keep these businesses in our state?
Well, I think you're addressing a very, very important issue. I mean, when I talk about economic development, oftentimes I say it's a three-legged stool, and that not only do we have to recruit new industry, but we have to continue to protect existing industry. But the third leg is we have to grow new industries. And I'm so proud of our research institutions. So whether it's Georgia Tech, the University of Georgia, Emory University, the discoveries that are coming out of there is remarkable. The eminent scholars that we continue to commit to creates this ecosystem that is very, very important in finding the new discoveries to where they can be brought to the marketplace and commercialized. But one of our greatest challenges has been that for all the great discoveries, we don't have the presence of venture capital. That's the funding source that is needed. They need management, they need money, and they need a market to penetrate. And the money aspect in venture capital has really eroded away from us. And what happens is Boston and other areas come in and capture those companies and move them away. We want that to end. We want to create this ecosystem that really is fully integrated. From the management side, but also for the support side and the financial side that's going to be necessary. We're going to be working with the Georgia Chamber with some recommendations along with the governor's office that'll be coming forward that I think will create real solutions that will allow us to be far more competitive and allow many of those great companies to continue to exist here in our state that allows us to be very proud of.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, job creation for you. You've put a lot of your efforts in driving new investment, helping existing industries to grow. We're kind of our growth is still slower than hoped for. How do we continue those efforts with new and also our existing businesses to grow and economic development? How do you see we continue?
Well, job creation has been the overriding focus of our work in the Georgia House over the last 3 years, and it's going to continue to be, because I think that it's the way we create a bright and great future here in Georgia, and also it's what Georgians, I think, want us to be doing. We started down that path with tax reform. I was very pleased that our efforts on reforming our tax code to make Georgia more competitive produced the package of reforms that we passed last session. I think those were very, very significant. I'm very pleased with that. I think that, you know, we can look for ways of making that even a more prominent part of what we do going forward. What we're doing in the House now as kind of our second prong is looking at regulatory reform. When I became Speaker 3 years ago, I created a committee devoted to small business development. Chairman David Knight now is heading up that committee, doing a tremendous job by working on what we call the Red Tape Watch, which is an initiative that we have undertook last year. We're working on it more this year to identify rules and regulations in our bureaucracy at the state level that strangle the ability of businesses to do business. Overburdensome, oppressive regulations, I think we hear complaints about them. What this committee has been doing and what we're going to take from their work is looking at not only specific bureaucratic red tape problems, but looking at formulating sort of a consistent and stable test by which we can measure the benefits versus the burdens of these rules and regs, because I think that is one of the major problems that confounds business here in Georgia, and it's an impediment, and we need to work on it.
Thank you very much. Last issue is ethics. We've heard a lot about ethics reform. How do you think that can be best addressed? Lieutenant Governor, we'll start with you.
Well, obviously the Senate took action the first day by rule that put a cap at $100, and this was really mirrored after legislation throughout the country, particularly in Washington State, that I think is fair, and it was very clear by the public that they wanted to see an end to unlimited gifts. And this allows that to happen. It happened on day one, and the Senate is operating under it. My office is operating under it, and I think it is the proper balance. The reality of where we are is we have wonderful individuals that serve in the General Assembly, and none of them, you know, are individuals that are seeking to game the system. They want to do what's right and what's fair. And I think by putting it in rule allows that to exist, and everyone understands how the game is going to be played. And when I say game, I mean that no more unlimited gifts will be accepted. I think it sends a strong message. It's the right tone, and I look forward to the Senate abiding by it.
Mr. Speaker.
Well, I teased my friend that was more of a sun visor than a cap that they adopted the other day, but and I mean that respectfully.
Where are those boxing gloves at? I was looking for them.
No, you know, we can disagree about the way to do this. And at the end of the day, I anticipate that the Lieutenant Governor and I and the Senate and the House are going to come to an agreement on what constitutes real change here. You know, we can debate ban or cap or, you know, those kind of things all day long. But, you know, let me make a couple of points that I think kind of get lost in this discussion. You know, what the specifics are sort of cloud why I think we're having this discussion. And why I think we're having this discussion is really boils down to who is going to influence public policy in Georgia. Is it going to be influenced by people who are out there growing jobs, putting people to work, or is it going to be influenced by a political class or media elites who create these, what I believe to be, and I think the Lieutenant Governor agrees with me, just clearly erroneous perceptions about the kind of people that are working in the Georgia House and the Georgia Senate. So I think it boils down to control. And that's why I think you see all of the attention that's being paid to it. And I told one of my friends in the media a few days ago that I'm glad I'm not Matt Bryant, because every time we kind of get ready to do something, they move the goalpost. And had they moved the goalpost Sunday afternoon, we might not be having a ball game here this weekend. But that's kind of the challenge that we have. But we're going to, I think, arrive at an agreement on something. We're working in the House on a package that we'll introduce when we get back after the budget break, and we'll let Georgians judge the quality of our efforts. One of the things, though, that I think must be addressed is who gets caught up in the definition of lobbying. We've got a lot of people prowling the halls down there at that Capitol that are advocating for one side of an issue or the other, that are not wearing badges, and they're clearly undertaking lobbying to influence legislation, and they are not registered lobbyists. And we're going to help them find the registration desk, and we're going to help them find a badge so that we're going to be identified and know who they are.
Thank you.
The only people clapping are lobbyists right now. You know,
I would clap too, but they tell me be appropriate. Any other issues you'd like to address that you see coming up during the 2013 issue that we didn't talk about today? Anything else you want to add for good order?
The only thing I want to add is just, you know, we are blessed, and this has been a very, very difficult economic time that all of us have gone through. We've had our good friend, the mayor, talk about that. We've had a dear friend of mine and Senator Isaacson talk about it. The governor's about to address us. The speaker and I have been long time friends, but we will endure. And Georgia is a wonderful place, and our star is going to continue to rise, and we're going to continue to be the capital of the South. And when you look at what Chris Kaminsky and the Economic Development team has done, and the help of the Georgia Chamber and so many others, there are many wonderful things in our future. We just need to stay the course and continue to do our part, having the shoulder to the wheel. And it's an honor to be with people like the Speaker and the Governor, and obviously a great leadership team in the Senate to address the difficult issues, to make sure we're positioned properly to take advantage of opportunities ahead.
Well, I'll echo that to an extent. I talk to other leaders in legislatures around the country, and I hear they're kind of moaning and whining about their battles with the other chamber or with the governor or within their chamber. And I come away feeling blessed because I think we have a good team. The Senate is a good partner to work with, and I think we're very fortunate to have the leadership of Governor Deal at this point in Georgia's history, and Mayor Reed here for the capital city, and two outstanding members of the U.S. Senate representing our interests up there. And I'm optimistic about our future. When I see projects like the port and the improvements that we've made in higher education and so many other good things that we have going for us, I truly believe that Georgia's greatest days are still ahead. And go Falcons Sunday, by the way.
Great. Gentlemen, on behalf of the business community in Georgia Chamber, thank you for your service. To you, members of the General Assembly, the executive branch, all the branches of government, tough times require tough people. We're in good hands. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our question. Give it up again for the Lieutenant Governor, Casey Cagle, and Speaker David Ralston.
All right.
Good job, man. Good job.
Good job.
Bye.